my gosh, hi. Hello, and welcome back to season 3 of the Uncovery podcast. My name is Maddie, and I used to have anorexia, and I've talked about it on this podcast at length for 2 whole seasons. And now it's time for season 3 and a little bit of a different theme. If you are brand new to Uncovery, welcome. And if you have been here since the beginning, welcome back, and thank you so much for being here. Today, I am basically going to talk to you about what I mean by uncovery. What started as a play on words, because the word recovery never really resonated with me, has sort of expanded in the way that I think about things, the way I think about the human experience, the way that I think about struggling, the way that I think about overcoming. And so there are 4 main things that I think about when I talk about uncovery. Number 1 is that when I've thought about recovery in the past, it always had this backward-looking element to it, where going back to some previous state, trying to recover what used to be. And that never made sense to me, because not only for me was that so far in the distance that I'd never be able to recognize that person again, but I think it's really more about figuring out what's next and figuring out what's coming next in whatever it is that you're going through. So rather than recovering to something previous, it's more about uncovering what's yet to be in the future. Number 2 is about uncovering the truth about what's actually going on, using things that are evidence-based, research-based, provable in the real world, and practical for people to actually use. We have a lot of theoretical models and a lot of esoteric talk when it comes to the human experience and struggling through something, but we really don't have a great grasp on what is the real evidence telling us is going to be working and what is not. That means empowering people to be able to take ownership over their own experience. Number 3 is my very deep belief that at our core, we are whole, and that we always have been, and that the layers of experience and the lives that we've gone through have created different resistances and barriers and blockades to get back to that place that we are. And really what it's about is uncovering what was always there to begin with. So peeling back those layers of the things that have gotten in our way and come back to who we are at our essence. And finally, the 4th definition of uncovery for me is finding other stories, finding other people, finding connections that really show us what is possible as a human. What are the things that we can overcome by looking to people that have done it and have shown us what is possible. By telling stories, by collecting stories, by showcasing stories, I think it's possible to show people what is possible for themselves. And again, give them that autonomy, give them that self-empowerment to be able to move through things that they're going through. My thesis in this entire thing is that there are very disparate camps on what it means to go through a thing and how we should be doing that. And we have one camp that is essentially grind it out, push through, be relentless, keep going, go through it. And the problem with that element to me is it doesn't allow any softness. It doesn't allow any revisiting of the causes of what it is that we're going through or struggling with. And so I think that that's incomplete. On the other hand, we also have this overly bubble-wrapped, soft, fluffy sort of way of looking at the world that means nothing was our fault and it's only happened to us. And if we can just bubble wrap ourselves and protect ourselves from all of the nasty, mean parts of the world, that then we can be happy. And I think that's really disempowering. And I don't think that it allows anybody to make progress forward. So both of these things seem to have lack, but both of them actually have some really valid pieces as well. And so if we can sit in the middle of those things and allow both of these things to be true and to be combined in a way that's more powerful than the sum of their parts, let's say, then I think we're really onto something. And that's my thesis, is that we need to be able to hold people's hands and walk them out of the things that they're struggling with. with alongside them. But we need them to be the ones that initiate that movement. We need them to be the ones that are doing the new behavior, that are creating new habits, that are creating new mental patterns, that are getting rid of old behavioral patterns that they may have had. And that's really the only way that I think anybody gets through things, is to decide internally, I am the one that can do this, but I can collect resources and support along the way. So that's what I'm here to do. That's what we're all doing here. And to be able to share some experiences and some guest stories and some expert opinions on how it is that we all kind of get through this thing called life and uncover really what it is that's the best version of it, that's all I can hope to provide. Now, in the spirit of full disclosure, honesty, and seeking the truth, I will say up front that I do have some controversial opinions on not just eating disorder recovery, but the whole world of wellness. Number one is that wallowing in victimhood is disempowering and is going to get us nowhere. Thinking about the world as out to get you, thinking about all of the ways that you are being overlooked or mistreated or treated differently is only going to keep you stuck. Number two is that having a negative feeling is not trauma. The differentiation between big T and small t trauma, which I have talked about previously in the podcast, is a really, really important one. If we start to use words that don't mean what they actually mean, then we're really losing the plot about getting people better. Health is not a dirty word. And to acknowledge that we can be in pursuit of health doesn't have to be at odds with having a mindset of abundance, of freedom, of intuition, and of recovery in the case of eating disorders. And finally, and maybe most controversially, destigmatization is not the same thing as romanticizing mental illness. We have made great strides and continue to make great strides, and I think should continue to make even further strides in destigmatizing what it means to struggle with your mental health. That said, there is extremely real suffering that is caused by mental illness, and so if we just blanket accept that there's nothing that we want to be doing about this, and that in the effort of preserving people's feelings about stigma means that now we're actually not going to talk about the elephants in the room and the ways that these mental illnesses manifest themselves in people's real lives, who are we helping? Bonus round of controversial opinions. I think there's a difference between the way that genders experience mental illness, the way that they experience struggling in their lives, and the way that they access resources. And so this is a safe place for everybody, no matter who you are, what identifying characteristics you may have. I don't think any of that matters. I actually think that the human experience is pretty much universal, but I do think that we see trends in the ways of women being very well resourced and having a lot of access and support in their mental health endeavors. And I think that we are really, really slacking on helping the men in our lives and the boys as well. And that worries me. So these are just a handful of the themes and perhaps, I don't know, call them heterodox opinions. And that's what we're willing to dive into here on Uncovery. You will know for sure that I am telling you exactly what I think, and that I can only hope that you will do the same in response. So welcome, and let's recover loudly to save others from dying quietly.